Greetings from Kelowna. Thanks for joining me, everybody that's watching. One of the questions that I get asked a lot as a yoga teacher is how do I adequately prep for an inversion practice? Or more to the point, how do I get into headstand? Headstand's an awesome pose, as are many of the inversion poses, Pinchamayurasana, which is forearm stand, or handstand is typically one that lots of people are interested in practicing. So there are definitely some really great ways that you can prep, create strength, create more length in the body in order to facilitate a safe practice of headstand and some of the other inversions. Before we get started, a couple things just to note, please. Contraindications for inversion practice, particularly for headstand. If you have anything going on in the cervical spine, so in your neck, any past injury, current injury, any pain that you're working with right now or recently, I would just suggest putting not putting any weight on the top of your head. So you're fine to listen to your body and do some of the prep stuff, but really try to avoid any pressure on the top of the head until the injury or the discomfort that you're working with in the cervical spine has been addressed. Similarly, if you are prone to having migraine headaches or have one, probably want to avoid putting any weight on your head, just so that we're not exacerbating that condition. I personally find that if I do have a mild headache, headstand is really helpful, but that's me in my practice, and one of the things that many yoga teachers and professionals would recommend is that if you do have migraines, it's probably best to avoid an inversion practice or headstand. Finally, if you are carrying a passenger, particularly if you're in the first trimester, it's always a good idea to err on the side of caution. I'm in my new house, by the way, so they're still actually building it. We haven't moved in. So if you hear funny noises, that's why. So I apologize for that. It's just a nice, quiet, most of the time, space. So anyway, if you're newly pregnant within the first trimester, I would suggest just avoiding inversion practice altogether. You can work on some of the prep stuff. Just be mindful around some of the core work. And certainly like poses like downward dog or dolphin are fine. And then if you have an inversion practice, once you kind of get out of that more precious zone of the first trimester, it's probably okay to return to an inversion practice. Just being mindful that as your body changes, the center of gravity shifts on a daily basis, and you're really gonna want to just stay very aware in your body as you're moving through the poses. So, that being said, inversions are great. There's tons of benefits. So how do we get strong? How do we get strong? We want to focus on creating more strength in the core, upper body strength, so in particular the shoulders, the upper back, and the neck. And also really important, creating more length in the hamstrings in order to access the pose safely without jumping onto your head. You want to make sure that the hamstrings are nice and long. And we'll see why in just a moment. So one of the best poses that you can do to prep for headstand is one of our favorites as yogis, downward facing dog. So I'll just take you through the alignment cues for that. These are my cues, or the cues that have been taught to me by my teachers and my most important teacher, which is my own body. If you find that something I'm saying doesn't work for you, please adjust in a way that allows you to access the action of the pose without compromising what feels right in your body. So you're going to start with your hands outer shoulder distance apart. Tuck the toes, lift the hips, and send the hips back. So once you get into the pose, keep your knees a little bit soft until the hamstrings wake up. You press into the inner triads of the hands, so the index finger knuckle, the thumb knuckle, and the base of the inner wrist. Really try to focus on pushing the mat away from you and creating some length through the spine. And really by pressing through the inner triads, activating the triceps, getting nice and strong through the arms, and then softening the heart towards the thighs. At the bottom of an exhale, of course you're working with the Ujjayi breath here, you want to pull the navel to the spine and tuck the lower ribs in. So what's going to happen is you're going to feel your upper back kind of engage also. And really what you're going to do when you engage the core is you're going to inhibit the ability that you have to really dump into your shoulders, which is a good thing. So engaging the core, navel to spine, lower ribs in, pressing through the hands, and softening the heart towards the thighs while keeping the core engaged. So that Uddiyana Bandha, that navel to the spine. And then you want to focus on pressing through your hands and trying to bring more weight and energy into the legs, spinning the heels behind the second toe, nice and strong through the fronts of the legs, the shins, the quads. You can even lift all 10 of your toes. I often do that. And then sinking the heels. Really not worried too much about whether your heels come to the mat. It's no indication as to like how amazing a yogi you are. I've been practicing for like 15 years and my heels are still nowhere close to the mat, so it's no big deal. So what you're going to want to do with your downward facing dog is rather than just doing it within the scope of your vinyasa practice or your flow practice, start to increase the increments of time that you're staying in the pose. This is really good prep for headstand, not only from a strength perspective, but also in terms of stamina. So the ability to be in a pose and to be able to stay in it, in that controlled breathing, in awareness is really, really important. So start with your dog, maybe work on getting to 30 seconds, and then once you've got to there, maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I think once you get to 5 minutes, there's kind of a law of diminishing return. I don't know how much more benefit you get, but if you can get to 5 minutes, that's a substantial amount of time. It'll really, really help your practice. Some of the signs it's time to come out. If you're feeling really labored in your breath, good sign that it's time to come out. Also, if you're like, I see people in class and they're just like shaking like crazy, it's over then. You really want to make sure that you're able to maintain the action of the pose, to maintain the integrity of the pose. And if you're shaking, you're probably making adjustments in your body to make the pose more comfortable so that you can stay, but really you're probably not doing much except for potential setting yourself up for potential injury. So if you're shaking like crazy, time to come out. It's all good. There's always tomorrow. That's why they call it a practice. And pain. Like pain is always the #1 indication that it's time to get out. So if you're feeling like sensation is good. We work with that all the time in yoga class. But pain is not good. Pain is your body's way of saying, get out. So sharp sensations, intense burning, like, you know, feeling like we all know what the difference between pain is and sensation. So if you're feeling pain in the body, it's time to get out. And that goes with any of the poses. The second pose that I really love for inversion prep is dolphin. So interlacing your fingers, elbows no wider than the shoulders. And this is one that yogis have a really hard time with. So a good way to check is just like interlace your fingers and then undo your hands and then like just clasp opposite elbows. I see this a lot, and this is just not sustainable. This is going to place a ton of pressure on your shoulders and your upper back, even the thoracic spine. It just doesn't feel good. So keep it in tight. I would say err on the side of more narrow, and that will keep all of the energy, muscular energy, contained towards the midline. So elbows down, no wider than the shoulders. Tuck the pinkies, don't tuck the pinkies. I don't really care. Just find a place where your fingers are comfortable. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, and press back. So again, similar energy as with downward facing dogs. You're going to want to press through the forearms. Relax the head to begin with. Soften the heart. Wake up the legs. So really waking up the hamstrings here. Pull the navel to the spine, the lower ribs tucking in. Again, stay here for a few breaths. And then I actually love to incorporate some well. This is going to help to really engage the core and recruit from all areas of your body. So a lot of people think that inversions are all about like, oh yeah, it's just like balancing on my head. But you have to really invite the lower extremities to the party. So forearm plank is great for that purpose. So from here, you just soften the upper back, reach the heart forward, tuck the low ribs, and engage your legs like crazy. And then you can walk it in back to the dolphin. And eventually, you're going to start to want to lift your head and just work on strengthening the back of the neck. And then you can walk it back out to the forearm plank, reaching the heart forward. The back of the neck stays nice and long. Watch the grip on your hands. And then walk it in again. So you can do that like, I don't know. We have a little joke in one of my classes. We call it dolphin plank all day long. It's a great pose. As you can see, it really gets things fired up. So that's a really great prep pose. So from there, you're going to also want to work the core. There's lots of poses in the yoga practice that address the core. One of them is Navasana. So just coming back onto the sitting bones. Again, Uddiyana Bandha, navel to spine, low ribs in. Okay, so this is kind of like a level 2, which, you know, I mean, if you're working on practicing inversions, the core needs to get super strong. So you can start here with the heels down, and then bring the shins to parallel. And then eventually, once you become like a super core rock star, which I am not, you can start to straighten the legs. And then you can add all sorts of variations in your Navasana, in your boat pose. So sometimes I like to add a twist. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes I'll like lower and come up, lower and come up. So all of these different variations are going to recruit different parts of your abdominals. There are lots of really great core practices available online. If you're not part of the Yoga Glow community, check them out. They're super great. Or just like, you know, go to the yoga studio and take a Pilates class. But I can't recommend enough work your core for all aspects of your practice, but in particular for inversions.